takes place at Pentecost. And what do they do there? They rededicate themselves to the law of Moses. And they condemn or curse anyone who strays to the right or to the left. That's what they do at Pentecost. And if you want to read that, it's in the Damascus document. And particularly, it's in some fragments of the Damascus document that were only published by ourselves recently. In other words, they weren't published in the original publications. And but it is clear that Pentecost is the reunion. And what are the desert camps? Well, who knows what the desert camps? The desert camps is where these people were holding out in different groups, and then they would have a reunion for Pentecost. That's what this looks like. That there's a reunion of the whole community at Pentecost. Now, here's Acts' presentation of why Pentecost is important to Christianity. Not to rededicate themselves to the law and to curse those who strayed to the right or to the left of the law, but everyone gathered together, you see, line 1, that's the same as the scrolls. And God-fearing men from every nation under the sky. God-fearers are the people who are attached to the community, who are not native-born, but were called God-fearers. That's in the Damascus document too. If you look at the Damascus document from the Dead Sea Scrolls, they talk all the time about God-fearers in this reunion situation that they talk about. Anyway, they come together again in line 6, and there were Galileans, but there were also all these people from everywhere else, and it names them all. And of course here, but Peter standing with the 11, line 14, I suppose you could say that he's the 12th, but it seems odd to speak about the 11 still. But anyway, if we have an election to replace the 12th. But anyway, that may not be an issue. Start to talk in tongues. And this is talk about line 18. I will pour out my spirit on you. Men, Israelites 22, hear the words. And finally 23, you laid your wicked hands on him, you killed him, you crucified him. Here's the first blood libel accusation put in Peter's mouth in Christian history here. Now that's not a good way to get a lot of converts. I can't imagine Peter spoke to a crowd like this with any hope of great success. If I said, you're all like killers in this class, and so on and so forth, you're going to probably revile me to some extent anyway, but you're going to revile me even more, you know. And that's not the way the Pseudo-Clementines present Peter, that's all I can say. Now, to my mind, the parallel to this is in the Pseudo-Clementines that I gave you. They're having debates on the temple steps with the church authorities, and each apostle speaks in turn. And finally, Peter speaks. And he doesn't speak like this, full of venom and aggression. He speaks very gently and eloquently. And then James is the final speaker, and he's just about to win everyone over on the temple steps when an angry man comes in and starts a riot on the Temple Mount of bloody violence. And he picks up one of the pieces of wood that they used to, you know, in the fires in the temple, you know, for the offering of things. And he attacks James on the steps and throws him down the steps and leaves him for dead. And then he gets letters from, he's called the enemy, the man who's our enemy, and then he gets letters from the high priest to pursue the community to Damascus. Well, that's supposed to be Paul in the Pseudo-Clementines. You say, well, that's crazy. That's not in our Gospels. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, let me finish. Hold on. That's telescoped a lot here from what we have here. But, you know, Paul is not introduced here till about chapter 8. So all that's in the first book of the recognitions in book 1. But the parallel is the debates on the temple steps. That's going to continue through the first 5 or 6 or 7, first 6 chapters of Acts, constantly going back to the temple steps and debating with the crowd. So to my mind, the parallel between the two is there, and then the additional parallel comes when the attack on Stephen instead of the attack on James. So if you want to think of a parallel between the two that's there, depending on if you think one is a liar and the other isn't, you'll make your own view up. Yeah, go ahead.
I just would like to know that resource that you think it may be Paul.
Well, everyone thinks it's Paul because he gets letters from the high priest.
No, but where can I look it up?
It's in the thing I've given you. I've given you the whole thing if you bought it. He's got it in here.
I have purchased it, but do you have an exact?
It's in the recognition, book 1, you'll find it. I mean, it's in here, but exactly. Let's see, homilies, where's the recognitions? No, I don't see, let's see the recognition, here we are. Let's see. So there's a speech of Gamaliel, like in Acts here. And let's see, speech of Gamaliel, let's see, Peter. Tumult raised by Paul, here it is. To him our James began to show whatsoever prophets say they have taken from the law, they have spoken. He also made some statements. This is Clement supposedly narrating this. And it's about James's speech. And then when matters were at this point, that's the debates on the temple steps, they should come and be baptized, some one of our enemies. Marginal note in one of the manuscripts states the enemy was Paul, according to the footnote here, but don't need that to understand that's who they intend. Entered the temple, the few men began to cry out and say, "What mean you, Israel? Why are you so easily hurried? Why are you led headlong by the most miserable men who are deceived by Simon the magician?" While he was thus speaking and adding more to the same effect, and while James the bishop was refuting him, he began to excite the people and raise a tumult, so the people had not been able to hear what was said. Therefore he began to drive all into confusion with shouting and to undo what had been arranged with much labor, and at the same time to reproach the priests and to enrage them with revilings and abuse, and like a madman to excite everyone to murder, saying, why do you hesitate? You sluggish and inert, why do you not lay hands on him and pull all these fellows to pieces? When he had said this, he first, seizing a strong brand from the altar, set the example of beating, and then others, seeing him, were carried away with this madness. Then there ensued a tumult on either side, of beating and beaten, and much blood is shed, and there is confused flight, in the midst of which the enemy attacked James and threw him headlong down the steps. And supposing him dead, he did not bother to inflict further violence on him. Then it goes on about the flight of the 5,000 to